Have you ever worked under a leader who criticized your performance in one meeting and then turned around in the next meeting and told you were doing a great job? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. One of the most frustrating experiences for high achieving professionals is being managed by leaders who constantly micromanage, send mixed messages, and then seem confused when morale starts to drop. Today, I want to talk about why micromanaging high achievers destroys morale, why conflicting feedback is so damaging, and why so many talented professionals eventually check out or walk away when this kind of leadership becomes normal. Because this is not just about small workplace annoyance. This is one of the fastest ways for organizations to lose trust, lower engagement, and push some of their best people. In this video, we're diving into a topic that so many ambitious, capable, and driven professionals have experienced, but don't always talk about it openly. What happens when high achievers are managed in ways that undermine their performance instead of supporting it? Over the years, I have talked to colleagues and friends from various industries, including education, the pharmaceutical industry, and government. And despite the differences in their work environments, the same complaints keep coming up. Micromanagement, conflicting feedback, a lack of trust, and a feeling that no matter how much they achieve, their leadership still finds a way to create unnecessary frustration around the work. That pattern is more common than many leaders realize, and the cost is high. So let's talk about it. Let's start with something that should be obvious, but somehow still gets overlooked in many workplaces. High achievers are usually not the employees who need someone hovering over their shoulder every 5 minutes. They are often the people who are already highly self-motivated. They take the initiative. They care about the quality of their work. They tend to hold themselves to high standards. They often go above and beyond without being asked. These are the professionals who are already thinking ahead, solving problems, meeting deadlines, and trying to produce strong results. They are not sitting around waiting or being forced into excellence. Excellence is already a part of how they operate. So when a leader responds to that kind of employee with micromanagement, it sends a very clear message. I don't trust you. And that message is incredibly damaging. Because if someone has already shown they are capable, responsible, and committed, constant monitoring does not improve their performance. It makes them feel insulted. It makes them feel restricted. And it makes them question why they're being treated like they're incapable when their track record says otherwise. That is where morale starts to crack. Now let's talk about something that makes the situation even worse: conflicting feedback. This is one of the most common frustrations that I've heard from high achieving professionals over the years. In one meeting, management is criticizing their work. They are picking apart details. They are questioning decisions. They are acting as if the employee is underperforming or missing the mark. Then, not long after, maybe in the next meeting or the next conversation, the same employee hears, "You're doing a great job." Now, on the surface, some leaders may think that sounds balanced. They may think they're being both challenging and encouraging. But that is not how it lands. To the employee, it feels confusing. It feels inconsistent. And over time, it feels manipulative. Because naturally, the person starts wondering, which message am I supposed to believe? Am I doing poorly or am I doing well? Are you giving me useful developmental feedback, or are you just reacting emotionally in the moment? Do you actually value my contributions? Or are you just trying to smooth things over after being overly critical? That kind of inconsistency creates emotional whiplash, and emotional whiplash is exhausting. High achievers want clarity. They want honest, constructive, and consistent communication. They can handle feedback. In fact, most high performers welcome feedback when it is specific and useful. But mixed signals are not helpful. They don't build trust, they weaken it. This is where we need to make an important distinction. Micromanagement is not the same as leadership. Leadership is about setting direction, building trust, creating accountability, and empowering people to perform at their best. Micromanagement is about control. It's about over-involvement in tasks that do not require your constant intervention. It is about inserting yourself into details that should belong to the employee. It is about monitoring instead of mentoring. And for high achievers, that distinction matters. Because when a capable employee is micromanaged, what they experience is not support. What they experience is interference. Instead of helping them move faster, micromanagement slows them down. Instead of creating confidence, it creates second guessing. Instead of increasing productivity, it often drains energy that could be spent doing more meaningful work. The leader may believe they are ensuring excellence, but what they are often doing is disrupting it. There is a huge difference between checking in and controlling. A huge difference between coaching and hovering. A huge difference between accountability and suffocation. And unfortunately, many workplaces confuse those things. Another thing I want to say clearly is this: high achievers do not need empty praise. They do not need constant atta-girls or atta-boys. Now, of course, appreciation matters, respect matters, recognition matters. But high performers can usually tell the difference between genuine recognition and surface level praise that's meant to keep them pacified. If someone is consistently producing results, solving problems, stepping up, and carrying weight, they don't just want flattering words. They want meaningful acknowledgement. That may look like a promotion. That may look like a bonus. That may look like more autonomy. That may look like expanded opportunities. That may look like real career advancement. In other words, high achievers want recognition that reflects their actual value, not just language that sounds nice in the moment. And this is where so many organizations get it wrong. They think praise can substitute for tangible reward. They think people will tolerate poor leadership as long as they occasionally hear that they are appreciated. But over time, words without action lose their value, especially for professionals who know what they bring to the table, and especially for people who are already delivering at a high level, especially for employees who are not looking for hand-holding, but are looking for fairness. What stands out to me is how universal this problem is. As I mentioned earlier, I have talked with colleagues and friends from education, the pharmaceutical industry, and government. And even though these sectors operate differently, the core frustrations sound strikingly familiar. In education, I heard from professionals who are passionate about their work, committed to students, committed to outcomes, and still dealing with administrators who over-control, second-guess, and pile on inconsistent expectations. In the pharmaceutical industry, I've heard from people working in high-pressure environments where precision and excellence matter, yet they still find themselves dealing with leaders whose management style creates more tension than trust. And in government, I've heard stories from professionals who are carrying significant responsibilities, navigating systems, serving the public, and yet still feeling boxed in by leadership that confuses oversight with effectiveness. Different industries, same problem. That tells me this issue is not just about one workplace or one difficult boss. It is a broader leadership problem. It's a mindset problem. Some leaders still believe that pressure equals performance. And some leaders still believe that being heavily involved in every detail proves they're strong managers. Some leaders still believe that keeping employees on edge will keep them sharp. But for high achievers, that approach often has the opposite effect. It creates resentment instead of loyalty, disengagement instead of motivation, and eventually turnover instead of retention. Let's talk about the hidden costs for organizations. When high achievers are micromanaged, the damage does not always show up right away. At first, the employee may keep performing. They may keep meeting deadlines. They may keep producing quality work. And from the outside, it may look like everything is just fine. But internally, something is changing. They are becoming less invested. They are becoming more cautious. They are sharing fewer ideas. They are doing less above and beyond. They are protecting their peace. And once a high achiever shifts from being fully engaged to simply surviving, the organization has already started losing something valuable. They have lost discretionary effort. They have lost innovation. They have lost energy. They've lost trust. And in many cases, they're on the path to losing that employee altogether. Because at a certain point, talented professionals stop asking, how can I make this work? And instead start asking, why am I staying here? That is the moment leaders should be paying attention to. Because by the time a high achiever mentally checks out, the damage has usually been building for a long time. Now someone might ask, why does this affect high achievers so strongly? Because high achievers often attach real meaning to their work. They are invested. They care about doing things well. They often identify with being competent, capable, and dependable. So when they are micromanaged, it doesn't just feel annoying. It feels deeply misaligned with who they are and how they work. It feels like their professionalism is being questioned. It feels like their judgment is being dismissed. And when that is paired with inconsistent feedback, it creates a constant state of tension. They start overanalyzing interactions. They start trying to decode leadership moods. They start wondering whether excellence even matters if the response is always confusion, criticism, or control. That's mentally draining. And it is one of the reasons why high achievers can burn out, even when they are good at what they do. Burnout is not always just about workload. Sometimes burnout is about the emotional strain of working in an environment where your effort is not trusted, your contributions are not consistently evaluated, and your excellence is managed in a way that feels more punishing than empowering. So what should leaders do instead? First, they need to trust the people they hired. If someone has demonstrated competence, commitment, and strong performance, give them room to do their job. That does not mean no accountability. It means appropriate accountability. It means being clear about expectations, outcomes, and standards without inserting yourself into every minor task. Second, leaders need to be consistent in their feedback. If there's a problem, Be specific. If there's something being done well, be specific. Don't swing wildly between criticism and praise with no clarity in between. People should not leave a conversation confused about where they stand. Third, leaders need to recognize that high achievers often value autonomy as much as they value compensation. They want to know that their contributions matter, but they also want the freedom to execute without being constantly second-guessed. And fourth, recognition needs to be meaningful. If someone is truly excelling, recognize that in ways that reflect substance, not just nice comments, not just symbolic praise, real opportunities, real growth, real reward. That is how you keep high performers engaged. Now, I also want to speak directly to high achievers who are watching this. If you are in an environment where you are constantly micromanaged and given conflicting feedback, please understand this. Your frustration is valid. You're not wrong for being discouraged by the kind of leadership. You're not asking for too much by wanting clarity, consistency, trust, and recognition that matches your contribution. Sometimes people in these environments start to internalize the dysfunction around them. They start to wonder if maybe they're being too sensitive. Maybe they just need to adapt. Maybe this is normal. But normal does not mean healthy, and common does not mean acceptable. A workplace can be full of bad habits and still be dysfunctional. So, if you've been feeling drained by this dynamic, it may be worth asking yourself some honest questions. Is this environment helping me grow? Is this leadership bringing out my best? Is my work being respected in a meaningful way? Am I being developed or am I being diminished? These are important questions because sometimes the problem is not that you are failing. Sometimes the problem is that you are functioning in a system that does not know how to handle high-performing people well. Micromanaging high achievers is not a strategy for excellence. It is a strategy for erosion. It erodes trust, erodes morale, it erodes motivation, and eventually it erodes retention. Leaders who want the best from high-achieving professionals need to understand a simple truth. People who are already driven do not need to be controlled into performing. They need to be trusted. They need to be respected. They need feedback that is clear and consistent. And they need recognition that goes beyond empty words. Because when you support high achievers properly, they do more than succeed individually. They strengthen teams. They raise standards. They contribute ideas. They create momentum. But when you smother them with micromanagement and confuse them with conflicting feedback, you don't unlock their potential. You shut it down. I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever worked in an environment where leadership gave conflicting feedback or micromanaged high performers? How did it affect morale, motivation, or your decision to stay? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this message resonated with you, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because this conversation matters, especially in workplaces that say they want excellence, but do not always know how to lead it.